Friends, welcome to another episode of the Science of Adventure podcast. You join me from the very adventurous setting of my kitchen. I did have to check to make sure it was tidy behind me, but here we go. We're in the adventurous setting of the kitchen, and today, folks, I want to talk about confidence, and I want to reiterate a few points that I was hammering home to some of my clients on our Monday coaching workshop. Now, as a brief introduction, whether you work with me on a one-to-one basis or whether you are part of my group challenge, the Adventure Ready Challenge, which is a 12-week full body and mind transformation, giving you everything you need from physical training that you can do at home or at the gym, nutrition, which actually makes sense, and we break down the barriers that are standing in the way of you and actually doing what you want to do with your nutrition. I tidy up what it is that you're eating, stop treating your body like landfill, lose weight, but also gain some performance through adventures. We dial into mental resilience and confidence, which is what we're going to talk about a lot more today. And what we also do, friends, as part of the Adventure Readiness Challenge, is adventure readiness skills. I want you to know everything that you need to know to be able to go out safely into the mountains. Navigation, planning, what to do when it all goes wrong, thinking on the fly. All of these are part and parcel of the Adventure Readiness Challenge. So whether you work with me on the Adventure Readiness Challenge, whether you're on one-to-one coaching, and as a brief overview of one-to-one coaching, this is very, very, very much in-depth, specific to where you want to go and what it is that you want to do. We will map out a strategy for you living as your best, most adventurous self, whether you're aiming for a very specific challenge in the future or whether you are looking to level up your way of living. Now then, regardless of which course or which package you are on, every Monday we jump onto a live coaching call, which is my excuse to listen to my own voice for a little while, and we take around 30 to 45 minutes on a Monday evening. Each week we talk about a new and different topic, and today we're going to recap on a few points where we talked about confidence. Now, confidence, there's no beating around the bush here, folks. Confidence comes from doing. Now, what, in my opinion and in my experience, what I see a lot of people have as a barrier in front of them, what holds them back, is the fact that they don't have the confidence to do something. Therefore, there is no energy to be able to then take on the challenge itself. And this is why I think it is. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or reach out to me independently, but when it comes to taking on bigger challenges, I feel like we think too big. When we think too big, we get stuck in overwhelm, and we are immobilized by overwhelm. I know exactly what that feels like because I've been in that camp several times before. You know, you find a route on the map, and let's say a 100-mile bike ride. You know, I'm going to kickstart this into fifth gear, and I'm going to get going straight away. And then you get to the morning of starting your ride, and you're like, this is going to be a really, really big day. And here's the thing. Because at that point, with that thought process, you haven't built what is called a stack of undeniable proof that you can do the things that you want to do, that you can live as the version of you that you want to be. Because you don't have that stack of undeniable proof, niggling doubt comes in. And that little devil that sits on your shoulder, it's either going to whisper or it's going to yell in your ear. For some people, they're going to yell. For some people, it's going to be a little bit of a whisper. And it's that niggling doubt voice that comes in and says, you're not good enough. You can't do this. Why are you even starting? Now, when it comes to building a stack of undeniable proof, there are two very, very important things that I implore you to consider and start putting into practice this year. Because 2025, we're here. It's March 2025. I turned 32 yesterday. Happy birthday, me. If we're coming into the new year, into the new summer, into the rest of 2025, we need to consider these two things. As we start to build ourselves up and as we start to forge mental resilience, confidence, live as the most adventurous and the best version of ourselves, which is what we all want, we need to learn by doing. We need to build a stack of undeniable proof. And the number one thing I want you to remember here, friends, is when it comes to building that stack of undeniable proof, it is so important. I cannot communicate to you enough how important it is to lower the bar enough so that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Now, I think this goes in contrary to what a lot of other people's thinking is. Generally speaking, we've got books and gurus and Instagram videos and whatever it is that we're watching that tell us to aim as high as we possibly can. I think there's some merit to that, but here's the disadvantage. if you aim so far outside of your vision and your experience, something that's so big, I don't think you're going to be able to achieve it, because it's going to be so much easier to be tripped over by the small things. Let me put this into a real world example that I've felt, and this is what I've lived, and this is why I feel like I know I can talk to you this with some authority and help you guide through this maze. In 2020, I was honestly in the fittest and most resilient and the strongest shape of my life. I was bulletproof. I felt amazing because I just spent the entire Scottish winter. I lived in Fort William at the time, right on the west coast of Scotland. It was the most sensational place, and it's somewhere that I really hold dear in my heart. It's a beautiful part of the world. I was living in Fort William, and I spent the entire Scottish winter training to run the Cape Wrath Trail. I was training to break the fastest known time of the 231-mile trail from Fort William all the way to Cape Wrath. Really, really, really gnarly trail. A lot of it is completely, not marked at all. It's not really any trail at all. You're just kind of following a bit of a goat path. And it was going to be hard work. And 2 weeks prior to me due to start this route, lockdown was called. And, one thing after another happened with lockdown, and that's fine. It was actually, for me personally, I feel very grateful that the lockdown came at a pretty good time. I had a lot of studying to do, and I was very fortunate to be furloughed, and that was an interesting time. But I feel like it was also a very difficult time, not just for me, but for everybody outside of my privilege, I guess. But what that did is that sparked the start of the cascade of events that led to me leaving. I'm not entirely sure what the video is doing here. That was very interesting. Had loads of balloons everywhere. It started the cascade of me leaving Scotland. And that meant I had to get a job, because I wasn't really into coaching at that point. I was working with a few nutrition clients, and I was working with a few adventure clients, but lockdown happened and those clients kind of wanted to save money and all sorts of things. So I really didn't know what I was doing in terms of the coaching realm, but I had to get a job because I spent all my money on moving house, because we had to move house, and it was something that we had to do. And then with that, a lot of time was taken up just working. Really long commute. It was an hour and a half to get there, an hour and a half to get back. It was not a nice job. The best part of my day was that hour and a half in the car on the way there, and the hour and a half on the way back. I would listen to podcasts, I would listen to books, I would listen to anything I could do that would uplift me and just bring me out of this slump. It was not a very nice place to be at all. And it was the cascade of what was a pretty dark time in my life, which kind of came and went away and came and went away. But with that, I didn't do Cape Wrath. I always swore that I would go back and do it. I didn't, because I didn't have the time, I didn't have the energy, and I didn't have the energy to be able to train that long and that hard to be able to do something so big. But what happened, friends, was over the next few years, I started an outdoor fitness business. I was incredibly proud of how that went. I burst into online coaching, and the Adventure Coach was born, and it was busy, really busy time. But I didn't do the big challenges. And then fast forward 3 years, 2023, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this Cape Wrath Trail. And I got there, and I ran 120 kilometers of the... I'm swapping, aren't I, between kilometers and miles. And I have a feeling that 230 miles is the best part of 390 kilometers, maybe 400 kilometers. I did 120. I burnt myself out. I burnt myself out, for 3 reasons, actually. It was a pretty dark time in life, and my way of dealing with that is through the catharsis of hard physical exertion, so I went out far too quickly. Number 2, my stack of undeniable proof was gone. And number 3, that impacted my mental game. So if my stack of undeniable proof wasn't there because I hadn't built that solid winter of training that I had up in Scotland, I didn't complete it. I couldn't complete it. I burnt out mentally. The stack of undeniable proof is only built when we can, and this is the lesson I had to learn pretty quickly, lower the bar enough for our goals so that we can actually achieve them. When we actually achieve them, then we're building the evidence. And here's the thing, it batters your ego and your pride and all the things that you think that you want to be able to be capable of doing, because you've got to start by doing easier things. When we start by doing easier things and we build that stack of evidence, the harder things eventually come. And this is the difference, friends, because it's not about achieving the big thing as it is at all. It's not. It's about who you become along the way. It's about falling in love with the process, with the monotony of getting up and training in the morning, with the stress and the pressure of finding time to train in the day, with managing all of your time on social media, on phones, and all the stress and stimulus that we all have in life. It's the journey. And if you can fall in love with that process, you become someone different. You become someone who is congruent with that future version of you that you want to be. We use goals as aiming markers. If you and I were navigating from A to B, and let's say B was quite a long way away, then we'd have on the map a bunch of aiming markers to make sure that we're still on the same path. Be like, okay, we're here at A, and we're going all the way to B. Well, I can see we're going to cross this track junction, we've got this stream, we've got this wood block. I'm going to use those as goals to get to ensure that I'm along the right path. And that, folks, is exactly what goals are. They are aiming markers to prove to us that we're on the right track and we're living the right life. So many people, I'm going off on a right tangent here, but so many people get caught up in thinking that the goals are the be-all, end-all, and this is life-defining. And quite honestly, outside of being a professional athlete, and maybe even I'd argue against being a professional athlete, that's not the case. You've got jobs, kids, dogs, houses, bills, all these things that we've got to deal with in life. We need to make sure that we're able to achieve the goals that we need to achieve. We need to be able to lower the bar to be able to do it. That might be starting with a 5k run in under 30 minutes, a 10k run in under an hour. That might be running your first trail 20k. That might be riding your first 30 miles or 30 kilometers or whatever it is. You might think of that as something relatively uneventful in the grand scheme of all the amazing things that you want to achieve. And I love that you want to achieve these things, but we've got to start somewhere. And the first rung of the ladder is exactly the same size as the last rung of the ladder. There's just 100 rungs between now and then. We need to make sure that we're able to achieve and step on every single one of those rungs all the way. Because along the way, we're climbing the ladder, we're achieving the thing, we're becoming the version of us that we want to be. Confidence is found in doing. We don't find it on social media. We don't find it in a YouTube video. We don't find it in a book. You don't find confidence in anything else external. It's in here. It's in the brain. It's in the mind. It's in you finally standing up and saying, I'm done with feeling this way. I'm done with being scared of going on my first solo wild camp. I'm done with being frightened of or put off about going up the mountain on my own. I'm done with being scared by the trail. I'm done with my fear of deep water, so I'm going to go for a cold water swim. I'm going to find that confidence by finding accountability, structure, motivation, planning, strategy, training to get there. I'm going to find a community of like-minded people who I can go with, and you're going to build confidence until you can do it yourself. If your goal is a solo, let's say one of my clients, one of their goals is to traverse the Kulin mountain range on the Isle of Skye. Not something they can do on their own. I'm going to be guiding them. It's going to be fantastic. But we're not ready to do that yet. A, we haven't done technical scrambling together, and we've got to learn to trust each other in that element. B, we've got an awful lot of coaching and training to do between now and then, a good 6 months, I think. We've got some training hikes to do as well. We need to get into that terrain. We need to feel what it feels like. We need to tick off some very easy hills first. The easier Kulin mountains and some of its neighbours. Then maybe a more technical mountain. We need to be able to build these up. We're lowering the bar enough to be able to achieve those rungs of the ladder and continue along the journey. Instead of saying, in 6 months' time I'm going to climb the Kulin, we're saying over the next 6 months we're going to do X, Y, and Z to be able to climb the Kulin hopefully in 6 months' time. But the important thing is breaking it down into those manageable chunks. And this is where I think a lot of people get lost, because they forget this bit. And then, if they do look at smaller goals, they think, oh, it's small and pathetic, and what's the point in even starting? And I'll tell you exactly the point in even starting. The point of even starting is that is the thing, the action that's going to have the highest likelihood of seeing you through to the end of this process. The second thing that I want you to remember, so the first one being it comes through doing and finding the confidence and lowering the bar enough. The second thing is one of my favourite all-time quotes, which I did butcher in my weekly call. I'm probably going to butcher now because I forgot to write it down and put it in front of me. But it's a Stephen Hawking quote. And it said, no matter how hard life may get, there is always something you can do and succeed at. And I think that is one of the most poetic things I've ever heard when it comes to personal development, when it comes to self-development. No matter how hard life gets, we've all seen hard times in life, friends. We've all been there. We've all seen that shadow. No matter how hard it gets, there is always something you can do and succeed at. And that links perfectly, I think, to the theory of lowering the bar enough. Finding something you can achieve, succeed, and do is fulfillment. It's forward progress. Do you know something, friends? That might be cleaning the kitchen. That might be hiking your local hill. That might be busting out 50 push-ups. That might be completing a workout. That might be an entire week of training. And whatever it is from there, from one end to the other, and everything in between. The most important thing is looking at something small enough to be able to achieve something. What is it that Lao Tzu said? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And you have to get into your minds, friends, that single step is not insignificant. The amount of power and energy and motivation and drive it takes to sometimes do that first step is never something to belittle. That's the first step of climbing out of the big, muddy, slippery trench that you might find yourself in sometimes. People say I'm looking for the secret for confidence. That's it. Lower the bar enough and just do the thing. You'll have so many voices in your head that are telling you to stop. I even get it relatively recently as well. If I'm going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm going to say I'm going to go and hike up a mountain for dawn or whatever, there are times in the morning where I think it's been a late night or, a big training day the day before and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit too tired and, I could just stay in bed. No one's forcing me to do this. That's another one. I could just stay in bed for another couple of hours and it'll all be okay. I feel that too. Then you get up and you're making a coffee and you're thinking, oh, could just go back to bed. And I would beat myself up for feeling like that. I'd be like, come on, Ben, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Like, what on earth? This is embarrassing. And then I'd make the coffee. This is how I get over it. I always think, not now. There's a saying by Jocko Willink, and he says, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but he says, it's okay that you're tired. It's okay that you want to rest. But don't rest now. Rest tomorrow. Not today. And I carry that thought process when I do feel these kind of things. So for example, if I am waking up early in the morning and I'm like, I will say to myself, Ben, you said you were going to do this. And I'm really big on, if you're going to say you're going to do something, go and do it. Follow through on what you said you were going to do. It's like, Ben, you said you were going to do this. So let's just get up. And if we decide to go back to bed, we decide to go back to bed. We're getting up first. Notice how we're putting off the action that our inner chimp that we want. If you're familiar with the work of Professor Steve Peters, absolutely fantastic. The inner chimp. It's the thing that's striving for comfort. You think, no, I'll do it later. And then you get up and you get to the coffee and you're like, well, I'm going to have a coffee. And once I've had that coffee, then I'll make the decision. Then, by the time that comes, you're in the car. You're already driving down the road. And if I'm already in the car, it's like I'm in the car. I'm not going to get out of the car and go back to bed. I'm going to drive. And then I'll make a decision at the car park at the base of the mountain. You're never going to not go for do something when you get to the base of the mountain because you've driven there. You've invested the time, invested the effort. Put your phone away. Don't get distracted. Keep the main thing, and get up the hill. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't achieve the adventure that you set out to do. It doesn't. And I want to make sure that that's fully understood here, friends, because if you have gone through all of that mental energy, and it will take mental energy to be able to force yourself to get to, let's say, the base of Snowdon, and you've parked in the bit where it's free, so not in Penny Pass car park, but just down the road towards Capel Curig. You've parked where it's free. And you're like, it's taking a lot of mental energy here. It's still dark. It's 6 a.m. It's still dark. It's a bit cold. It's going to be windy. And it's a hike to get to the top. If I want to get up there, I've got to hike to Penny Pass. Then I've got to hike the pig track. Then I've got to go all the way up. It's taken a lot of mental energy to get there. Then you're going to make the next decision of, I'm just going to get started. I'll get as far as Penny Pass. It'll be okay. From there, let momentum take you. And it'll take you as far as it'll take you. I'm not going to say you're going to get to the top at all costs, because that's irresponsible. That's not going to happen. If the weather turns, if you get tired, if something happens, it's not about getting summit focused and achieve at no cost, at any cost rather. It's about going out there and having an adventure and having a good adventurous experience. The thing about adventure, the thing about mountains is it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Well, rather, it doesn't matter about you achieving what it is that you set out to do. What matters is how you react and control the situation. I've been up several mountains where I've not made it to the top. The weather's closed in, or twist an ankle, or I'm just not feeling it. And I've learned to trust that feeling of, not today. I've learned to trust that. Because if I don't trust that and something goes wrong, then there we go. Adventure is about understanding and having trust in your own decision-making process. And if that doesn't garner confidence, friends, then I don't know what is. This is why I think adventure training is one of the most important things in the world right now. It takes us away from the 6.8-inch screen in front of our faces, which you're probably watching this on or listening to this on. And it puts us into uncomfortable situations where we have to force ourselves to learn and grow and develop. And it's my job as the adventure coach to show you, as much as I humanly possible, everything that you need. And I will guide you through a process to teach you everything you need to go on your own solo adventures. I take it from me, life is more fulfilling when you embrace solo adventures. You get out into mountains and you do that thing. I implore you to practice these this week. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel a little bit overwhelmed with the journey that you've got ahead of you, I want you to break it down into small, manageable chunks. Lower the bar enough. Is lowering the bar enough for you to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning instead of 7:30? Is lowering the bar enough to something you can achieve, you getting out of the door and going for a 2-kilometer run? Is lowering the bar enough for you, a dawn hike up a hill to go and have a coffee? Enjoy yourself. Figure out what it means to lower the bar enough. And then remember that no matter how dark it gets, we all know dark times. I said it before. I know dark times. Goodness me, you know dark times. I know what it feels like to be immobilized by that shadow to the point where you don't recognize yourself anymore. I know what that feels like. I've lived it. It's painful. It's not very nice. But remember that when times get like that, and they get that dark, and they take you to that shadowy place, that there is always something that you can do and succeed at. And it does not matter how big or small you think that is. The journey of 1,000 steps starts with one. The bottom rung of the ladder is the same size as the top rung of the ladder. It doesn't matter. What matters is action in the direction that is congruent to the version of you, friends, that you want to be. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a summary of what I was going through on my weekly workshop this past Monday. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's sparked a little bit of something there. Just thoughts, emotions, feelings. I would love to know what they are. If you've taken something away from this and you want a way to be able to communicate that, or you just want to share it with me, please do. I will not take that for granted ever. Send me a message and say, Ben, I listened to your podcast. I had to put it on 50% speed because you speak so fast. But you know something? This really hit home for me and I learned this. Or I've taken away this. I would love to know, because I want to know that the stuff that I'm putting out in the world is useful, friends. And if this is useful to you, please let me know. Because I'll keep going. This is the direction we're on. This is the mission that we are on. And this is what we've got to do. So there we go, friends. Enjoy the rest of your week, the rest of your day, whatever time of day or week it is that you are listening to this. And let's get after it, friends, because this is what it's all about. Lower the bar enough. Build that stack of undeniable proof. And remember that no matter how dark the times get, there is always something that you can do and that you can succeed at. This is the Science of Adventure podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.